Good evening and welcome. What unfolded at today's hearing was not just another tense exchange on Capitol Hill. It was a sweeping indictment of how power is being exercised at the very top of the Justice Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Attorney General Bondi. Tens of thousands of public servants at the Department of Justice and its bureaus have historically worked very hard and continue to work hard to protect public safety and uphold the rule of law in our country. Yet, I must take this opportunity to express my very strong concerns about this current administration's lack of respect for the rule of law. Over the past 5 months, we have seen numerous examples of this administration outright breaking the law. The administration continues to illegally withhold billions of dollars in funding that Congress appropriated, including hundreds of recently terminated justice grants that had been previously been awarded through open and competitive processes. The administration is violating the federal law that mandates that the Office of Management and Budget publish apportionments and show the public how and when federal agencies are spending appropriated funds. The Justice Department has begun illegally restoring the gun possession rights of convicted felons and domestic abusers. It's allowing the sale of forced reset trigger devices without a background check. These are devices that effectively convert regular firearms into machine guns, which I fear will only make mass shootings in the United States more numerous and deadly. More than 1,500 individuals involved in the January 6th attack on the Capitol were pardoned or granted commutations of sentences. The president's new appointee as pardon attorney, Ed Martin, previously raised money to help defend some of the most violent of these individuals, people who assaulted police officers. Some of the pardoned January 6 defendants have subsequently been arrested, charged, or sentenced for other crimes. Under this president, the U.S. has accepted a luxury jetliner from Qatar, very likely in violation of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution. This president has also issued a series of illegal and unconstitutional executive orders, several of which are being challenged in courts right now. Presidential actions in recent months have also directed highly political and targeted investigations against law firms and individuals, including Miles Taylor, a former staffer for the House Appropriation Committee's Republican majority. Meanwhile, the administration has weakened law enforcement against political corruption by gutting the department's public integrity section, which fairly investigates and prosecutes corruption by government officials. It has dismantled Task Force Kleptocapture, which was started after Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, to enforce sanctions and target oligarchs close to the Kremlin. It has also ended the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force, which was created to defend against foreign influence operations targeting U.S. institutions. Furthermore, dozens of experienced career federal prosecutors, litigators, and FBI leaders have been fired or forced out since the start of this administration, including James Dennehy, the highly respected leader of the FBI's New York field office. I'm really concerned about what is happening in the Department of Justice, especially based on the department's fiscal year 2026 budget request. The proposed budget weakens the country's efforts to fight crime and keep Americans safe. The proposal reduces funding for the FBI, despite the heroism of agents like those in Minnesota who aided in the recent capture of the deranged man accused of killing a state representative and nearly killing another. It slashes funding to fight the trafficking of fentanyl and other dangerous illegal drugs by reducing the budget of the DEA, cutting the high-intensity drug trafficking areas program by more than a third, and by completely eliminating the dedicated funding for the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force's program. The administration also proposes a cut of more than 25% to the ATF, which will further weaken the government's ability to fight illegal gun trafficking. This budget proposal also puts further pressure on state and local budgets at a time of great economic uncertainty. The proposal cuts by more than $800 million funding to grants to local and state law enforcement for fighting and reducing crime, including a cut of more than $37 million to burn justice assistance formula grants that help our local law enforcement in every single state. I'm also concerned about the huge cuts to grants aimed at preventing and prosecuting violence against women, such as STOP grants and sexual assault services grants. The administration also proposes eliminating 3 valuable programs aimed at fighting and preventing hate crimes at the same time that the FBI is reporting that hate crimes are at historic highs. The administration's budget would completely eliminate the Community Relations Service, which was created by the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to prevent and resolve conflicts in American communities. These actions and this budget proposal simply don't demonstrate a commitment to the rule of law and equal rights for all Americans. I look forward to discussing these important issues at today's hearing. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Lawmakers use their time to lay out a broader story, one that goes beyond headlines and sound bites, about what they see as a growing disregard for the rule of law inside an institution that is supposed to defend it. Before we go further, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our ongoing coverage and in-depth breakdowns of major political hearings like this one. At the center of today's remarks was a clear contrast. On one hand, there was recognition of the tens of thousands of career public servants at the Department of Justice, prosecutors, investigators, analysts, people who for decades have worked across administrations to uphold public safety and apply the law fairly. On the other hand, lawmakers argued that those professionals are now operating under leadership that is, in their view, undermining the very legal framework they are sworn to protect. This is an important distinction because it separates criticism of political leadership from criticism of the justice system's workforce itself. If you find this kind of context helpful, take a moment to subscribe so you can keep learning with us. One of the most serious concerns raised involved federal spending and Congress's constitutional authority over it. Lawmakers accused the administration of withholding billions of dollars that Congress had already appropriated, including justice grants that had gone through open and competitive processes. Under federal law, once Congress allocates funding, the executive branch is required to carry it out, not selectively freeze or cancel it for political reasons. This is not a procedural technicality. It is about checks and balances. If you want more explanations like this, subscribe now so you don't miss future updates. The hearing also delved into gun policy and public safety, an area where the Justice Department traditionally plays a central enforcement role. Lawmakers warn that the department has begun restoring gun possession rights to convicted felons and domestic abusers, actions they argue violate existing law. Even more alarming to critics is the reported allowance of forced reset trigger devices to be sold without background checks. These devices can dramatically increase a firearm's rate of fire, effectively mimicking a machine gun. The fear expressed at the hearing is that regulatory rollbacks like this could make mass shootings more frequent and more deadly, at a time when gun violence is already a national crisis. If you value clear explanations on complex issues like this, remember to subscribe to the channel. The hearing then turned to allegations of constitutional violations at the presidential level. Lawmakers cited the acceptance of a luxury jetliner from Qatar, which they argue may violate the Constitution's emoluments clause, a provision designed to prevent foreign governments from exerting influence over U.S. officials through gifts. This clause is rarely discussed in everyday news, but it exists for a reason: to guard against corruption and foreign leverage. When it is ignored or tested, it raises serious legal and ethical questions. For more deep dives into constitutional issues like this, hit subscribe and stay with us. There were also concerns about executive orders that courts are now reviewing, orders critics describe as illegal or unconstitutional. Several of these actions have reportedly directed targeted investigations against specific law firms and individuals, including Miles Taylor, a former Republican staffer. Lawmakers frame this as a dangerous politicization of the Justice Department, where prosecutorial power power is used not as a neutral tool of law enforcement, but as a weapon against perceived enemies. That distinction matters, because once justice becomes political, trust in the system begins to erode. If you want us to keep breaking this down clearly and fairly, don't forget to subscribe. Finally, the hearing highlighted structural changes inside the Justice Department itself. The administration has gutted the Public Integrity Section, the unit responsible for investigating corruption by government officials, regardless of party. It has also dismantled Task Force Klepto-Capture, which was created after Russia's invasion of Ukraine to enforce sanctions and pursue oligarchs linked to the Kremlin. Critics argue that weakening these units sends a troubling signal that fighting corruption at home and abroad is no longer a priority. These are not abstract bureaucratic moves. They have real consequences for accountability, national security, and America's credibility on the world stage. If this kind of detailed, human-centered reporting matters to you, subscribe now so you don't miss what comes next.